folks. Welcome to another edition of the Almost Hour. Let me turn that happy music down. Hope you don't mind. I felt like listening to a little bit of bluegrass while I give this one. Okay, well, where are we going today? Actually, I was going to do this yesterday, but had to do a kind of an emergency exorcism that I've been working on. I've got a friend from old Shanghai days who's gotten really deeply possessed by a Lilithian demon, and is in a really rough place right now, wherever he's hiding out in the Middle East, making trouble for basically anybody that believes in anything but this woo occult, peace, love, bullshit nonsense, which I like to preach against. I thought it was interesting that he let me refute his channel and only managed to laugh at me satanically and maniacally instead of refuting any of the points I made. So maybe there's progress coming there. At least he's still talking to me. Okay, what are we going to talk about today? Well, let's go look at the art behind me. This is a Grok creation. What did I tell Grok I wanted to see? Well, I wanted to talk a little bit about the most famous song. Well, I would say it's the most famous song of the singer. Others might disagree. As you know, Chris Christopherson died earlier this year after a long and, well, strange life, I would say. Not necessarily that difficult. Had its problems, ups and downs, and I wanted to talk over basically a theme that revolves around his song, Why Me, Lord? So before we go anywhere else, let me switch over here to my view. We're not going to talk about this slide yet. We're going to go here. I want to read this song to you. I'd like to perform it or play it, but I'm afraid I'd get a copyright strike, so I'll just recite it. I hope that is okay with the censors. Why me, Lord? What have I ever done to deserve even one of the pleasures I've known? Tell me, Lord, what did I ever do that was worth loving you, or the kindness you've shown? Lord, help me, Jesus, I've wasted it, so help me, Jesus, I know what I am. But now that I know that I've needed you, so help me, Jesus, my soul's in your hand. Try me, Lord, if you think there's a way I can try to repay all I've taken from you. Maybe, Lord, I can show someone else what I've been through myself on my way back to you. And then it goes to the chorus again. Okay, that's an interesting song. Very popular back in the day. I'm not sure how many people still recognize it, but it touches on what we're going to talk about today. I'm going to call this talk, Why Me, Lord? The Karmic Curse of the Gods. Okay? Now, if you talk to people who have been challenged about religion, as my friend was, one of the things that you will see as a common theme is also one of the main talking points that atheists use to diss on Christians or any other religion, but mostly Christians, because most atheists are really anti-Christians, as you will discover if you ever debate one. What they always latch onto is, well, if God's so great, why does he let bad things happen? I'm sure you've heard that a million times. Well, I'm going to explain why me, Lord, and what it means to you in scientific terms, explaining how this works in the simulation multiverse. Okay, first let's take a review about what a Merkaba is. If you haven't heard this Merkaba talk before, I have two different ways I like to give you a mental model of what the soul's Merkaba is. It's actually a thought structure made up of memories of experiences that you have had in many incarnations. Maybe only one incarnation if you haven't been around the block many times. Okay, so where does it originate? If you are familiar with the Star of David or some of the sacred geometry, you will know that the standard representation of the Merkaba is two tetrahedrons opposed, which if you view it in a flat plane looks like a Star of David. If you view it in 3 dimensions, it looks kind of like a, let's see, how many points would that have? An 8-pointed star, in fact. So that's also another 2D representation, is the 8-pointed star. What is missing there, what had fallen out of human memory, is that there's actually 3 tetrahedrons. And they have very, very significant attachment in those 12 dimensions. Okay, because 4 dimensions of your spiritual memory, if you will, are the memories of what's happened in your physical incarnations. This is when you were playing a character in the physical universe. And the physical universe is a pre-rolled virtual reality. It's like a divine plan. Okay, it's all set. All the characters are set, all the main characters, and then there's non-player characters that are kind of like scenery. Now the other use of non-player characters is there may be things that need to happen that no one has ever done before. Those are the cool non-player characters. Those are the ones that if you wake up spiritually, you might be one of the ones that has a chance to win that Messiah Merit Badge. Invent, the cure for cancer, or the greatest symphony since Beethoven, or something really special. And as I tell you, messiahs aren't just about religion. They are about passion. And passions can be good or bad. So there are evil messiahs too that have dark passions, get addicted to darkness, and become more evil. Now, the second tetrahedron stores your spiritual experience. That spiritual experience is the experiences that you have while you're in the alternate reality of a particular god or goddess. And basically, each god or goddess, when they get their own creative universe, they base it around either an imaginary universe in their mind, like J.R.R. Tolkien would probably not base his heaven on his environment where he grew up in, but he would probably base it upon the books that he wrote, the virtual reality that he was so famous for, that earned him his Messiah Merit Badge. Okay? So these alternate reality experiences can change depending on which god or goddess you're currently worshiping. If you're a huge Star Trek or Tolkien fan or Star Wars or whatever, have even a favorite character that is sort of your god, the one you want to be. If you're into cosplay, you probably have had this feeling. While you're at that cosplay convention, pretending you're that character and having these fantasies of that character, you are actually recording experiences in that virtual reality. Okay, that's why you feel this strong desire to be a Jedi Knight or an orc. I used to play D&D with a guy that always played an orc character, and he looked like an orc, and he was kind of mean and ornery, just like an orc. So I'm sure he's in orc heaven now. At any rate, so the spiritual experiences could come from many different afterlife universes, or even during life universes. You can change your religion. You may grow up as a Christian and be having your alternate reality experiences as a Christian in some Christian heaven. Then you may become a Buddhist and you start having things happen in the Buddhist universe. Okay, the way it works is if you play your character in the physical universe as it was planned, that's, just taking the non-player character default choice. Or if your character is a Messiah character, there are certain things that the Messiah characters have to do. Even if they choose something different, their different experience will happen in an alternate universe. If you're a non-player character, and it doesn't really matter much, you really have to do something way out of character to have that happen in another universe. Okay, now the third tetrahedron that the ancients were not aware of, I don't know that anybody's really talked about that till I came along, is God level experience. Now what's that? So if you choose to do something very different from what you were programmed to do, but not what your religion told you to do, that's your own experience. That's your own choice. That's the you that is the developing personality that you have, that you carry with you from life to life to life. Okay, even though in this life I'm playing Rob Trump, in another life I might have been playing Joan of Arc, or I might have been playing some slave working on the pyramids or something. Who knows? Okay, those experiences that go outside the path are the ones that get stored as your unique character. This is you exercising the strong passions that you're developing in each incarnation. Okay, and passions can be good or negative. We all have passions that we're less proud of. I've got a pretty strong attachment to wine. Now, many people have accused me of being an alcoholic. Well, I've proven them wrong by stopping cold turkey without any kind of withdrawals or anything for months or even years at a time. So I know that's not true. I just happen to like wine and it agrees with my system. Maybe it's my French heritage. At any rate, the other people will have attachment to marijuana and be able to use it all their life without negative consequences. Yet I know there's other people that will become stoners, mentally slow, and just kind of zoned out of the world. Okay, any substance that messes with your mind can do that. Or addictions like gambling. Okay, many people can go in the casino with $10, drop $10 and walk out of the casino. There's other people that can't resist going to the ATM and trying to get more money, or stealing it from somebody else. It's an addiction. Okay, if you're so fixated on your passion that you would steal from others, you would cheat others, you would do evil, that's a dark addiction. Even if it is, say you're a scientist and you have a family that you never pay any attention to, kind of like Albert Einstein. Okay, he was pretty bad to his family. He had an addiction to his work. And work can be one of the hardest addictions to deal with. Okay, so we all have these characteristic addictions, and some of them come from our character that we're playing. Some of them are developed. There are unique ones. Okay, so let's talk about Chris Christopherson. Since he's dead now, he won't mind if we're talking too bad about his life. Well, he was a very famous musician, very rich guy, hung out with the Hollywood set, was in a lot of movies too, not only a singer but an actor, pretty good actor, and quite well connected with that whole scene. Well, he was also an alcoholic, had drug addiction problems, and probably had some sexual problems too, which most people that sort of get into the Hollywood set do. Okay? I can't tell you which of those things are his character or which he added to it within the limits of what he was allowed to do in that character. Okay? It could be that somebody already perfected the Chris Christopherson character, and he was just a soul that got dumped into it because his heaven thought it would be good for him, or because he was just, nobody wanted to play that character in this round of the simulation, and it got assigned to a random soul taken out of the Borg source. I don't know. When I see him in heaven, I'll find out, if I see him in heaven. At any rate, if you look at his lifetime, you'll notice that there were many ups and downs. Most careers of performers are like that. They have this, they grow up doing normal things like children do, and then will maybe develop an interest in music or an interest in singing or science or whatever their passion is. And they start doing it, they find out, oh, I'm pretty good at this. And they may go try to use it. They may go try out for a play or something. And sometimes they'll get cast and they'll get attention. Other times it's like, well, they don't succeed at it. They had this passion, but it wasn't something that they were allowed to do in that life. Okay? Either way, it's a learning experience. And so as we go through our passions in life, thinking this is what I want to be when I grow up, and then maybe being disappointed or being encouraged, this is kind of how going up levels spiritually works. Okay? Within your passion. Okay? If you are a first-time character, you may have a very limited set of passions. You may find out, I really like music and I want to be a musician. And maybe you're going to be disappointed, maybe you're going to succeed, but because you're focusing on a passion, you tend to ignore other things that are important. This is why you have to reincarnate to go up real levels. You can go up little steps as an artist or whatever, but generally you make enough mistakes that you don't get to be a god just by being a successful musician or actor. You have to perfect all of the dimensions of your Merkaba. Okay? So how would this work then? So let's suppose that you were a non-player character that happened to have a passion for music. Your musical passion would be what got stored, whatever progress you made toward that, it would get stored in your God level Merkaba, which you don't know is there. You won't know that you have this own creative universe of yours until you develop it. And this is why we have this idea that practice makes perfect. It takes many incarnations to step into a role and be a professional musician or a professional actor. Not everyone has the talent. Not everyone can develop the talent. Anyone that tells you that is a charlatan. And believe me, there are a lot of charlatans out there coaching actors and musicians. I did that too. I don't think I was a charlatan because I told them squarely what their prospects were. I didn't sell them a bill of goods like many teachers do. Especially, I didn't sell them a bill of goods about the risks that they were taking if they became famous. I taught acting at modeling schools and for kids, and I made sure to warn them of the dangers they were going to encounter, how to be careful during auditions, how to spot scams, so you wouldn't get stuck in a room with a pervert or something like that. So I know a lot about this stuff, okay? I've been there. So the way things work is, if you are a first-timer and you're assigned a character that doesn't have a lot of opportunities, maybe you're born into a poor family or in a third world country, okay, there's limited ability to exercise passions there. That's how you got there, because the physical universe is a scenario, okay? It's a scenario centered around the latest Messiah, okay? This generation's Messiah is the Messiah that everybody was expecting in the Aquarius age. But that's capital M Messiah. That's the God character. That's like the anchor of this whole space-time. But there are many little m Messiahs, other characters that were either already established as being important in some way to leading the Messiah to wake up, or being part of the cultural milieu of the Messiah, because that's how we send messages to characters, okay? We don't go use psionic powers to mess with their minds and plant stuff. That's for the kind of evil gods. But what can happen is there are some darker characters in creation whose job it is to give these downloads, because at some point in certain characters' lives they have to get this Messiah download, to get this mission that I've got to do this, I'm going to do it no matter what, I'll give up everything. And that's another feature you'll see about famous artists, musicians, whatever, that they are so committed to what they're doing, they will starve to be successful. And most of them have to do that to get into the in crowd. They will sell their body to be successful. They will make deals with demons to be successful. Now, this is where we need to talk about, well, how does that work? Okay, Luciferian characters that embody kind of the testy sun model, they want power, they want their kingdom to come, and they will do anything to make it come. The difference between a Luciferian character and a Lilithian character, the destructive character, is that the Luciferian is honorable, will make a contract and will honor the contract in insofar as possible. Okay, so many of the groomers of talent are Luciferian in nature. It's transactional. Okay, you want this part? You come sleep with me on my couch, or you marry me, or you give me, you have your family give me a bunch of money, on the side, or get my kid a internship job in Washington. This is how the game works for Luciferian characters, and they can keep playing that for quite a long time if they are honorable, because people will trust them, even though they're stinky, grooming, abusive characters sometimes. At least they're good for their word. So you might think somebody like a Harvey Weinstein, or I don't know, fill in the blank. Okay, the Lilithian Satan characters, the destroyers, will you mess with your mind, will use and abuse you with no intent of following through on all their promises. So this is your P. Diddy kind of guy, gets you to the after party, you know, pumps you up, and maybe will give you a big career, but a lot of times will just cast you out in the morning and or knock you off in a satanic ritual abuse session, which does happen. Okay, that's Lilithian Satanist characters. Those are the really evil ones. Okay, so your character has certain things that are going to happen to them that are based on a life that has already been played, if it was important to the scenario, the apocalypse, if you will. If it wasn't important, then it might become important, because every character still has free will. And as long as your exercise of free will doesn't involve stepping too far from the path, it will happen in this universe. Okay, so like if you drive to work every day and one day you drift off and an accident happens, well, if that accident doesn't matter, it'll happen in this universe. If it does matter, it may happen in another universe, and then you will have what we call a near-death experience, where, wow, I thought I went and drifted off, and when I came back, I was still here. Or maybe you did have an accident, and you have the experience of the accident, but you didn't actually die. Maybe you did die, but a copy came back. That's how transmigration works. Okay? If you fail at an important role that needs to go on in a big way, you will get replaced with the higher self that was playing that character, that knows why you chose it, if you reincarnated before. So this is why some people are very interested in having near-death experiences or psychedelic experiences, anything that is going to be widening their consciousness, so they can see, maybe get an idea of what their mission is in life, if they're kind of struggling and so forth. This is why you see so many people reaching out to spiritual practices and gurus and stuff like that, trying to, why me, Lord? Okay, asking that very question in a different context, in the context of a different religion, perhaps a religion that doesn't have any connection with God. Okay? And this can be dangerous, because you are connecting yourself with a cult. A cult is a religion that does not comprehend how all religions, all good religions, should lead towards the highest heaven. Evil religions lead towards the lowest hell. And the lowest hell actually is not Lilithian. Lilithian is destructive evil, but that actually serves a purpose. The lowest hell is where you just give up. Say, I'm not playing this game anymore. I want to go back to source. That's the choice to join the Borg hive mind. You lose all your experience. Your experience gets copied into the Akashic records, so it can be used as a template for other characters. And that's basically how this knowledge database that so many first-time spiritual experiencers think is, I saw the light, I was in infinite love, and I had infinite knowledge. Okay, what you're really experiencing is either the Akashic records of the Borg, or the copy of the Akashic records that a Lilithian hive mind entity has, which is in general the same database as the Borg. So it's really difficult to tell which enlightenment you're having, and both of them are bad things. One is going to lead you to being one with everything and being in nirvana, which means giving up your whole identity, your ego, which is not a bad thing. And, you know, maybe you want to because you've had such a bad experience in this life. But if you don't know if you've had any past lives before, it might be worth hanging around for this life to see if you were just dealt a bad character. You learn something from every character you play. In fact, you learn the most from the most difficult lives. And this is the answer to the why me, Lord question. Okay? It's a chance to learn. It's a chance to grow. If you do it with the conscious intent to grow closer to God in the best way you can, with limited knowledge, not really understanding much about who God is, what God is, but just listening to some good advice, like the 10 Commandments. Like, you know, most of the Bible has pretty good suggestions, except for the parts that were kind of put in by Lilithian entities that, oh, it's all love. There's no evil. If somebody does something bad to you, turn the other cheek. Oh, I'm glutton for punishment. Oh, I love being a masochist for Jesus. Okay, this is kind of the dark side of Christianity, right? We've met people like that. This is essentially the character type of a covert narcissist, a masochist who takes all the pain that the world gives them and then says, "Why me, Lord?" And you know, justifies their mistakes, getting tangled up with evil people, as blames it on God. Or you know, it's kind of like the, you know, the Pie Jesu Domine, boom, the self flagellating priests of the Middle Ages. Those are dark people. Those are dark characters. They aren't blessed by God. God doesn't want you to punish yourself if you've had a sin, okay? Maybe punish yourself mentally, which is why we have this macabre memory. It remembers our sins. The little sins we can forgive ourselves for. The big sins, the big karmic sins, where you really hurt somebody, you kill somebody, you ruin their life, you groom them into a satanic cult, you know, that indulges in sex magic or death magic, which are both bad things. Okay, I'm talking to you, you tantric magic lovers. The chakra magic is not good. It can be used for good, but it's not. There's no guarantee. It's not all good. Okay, and people who abuse that tantric magic, especially for big personal gain, and you know who you are, you big name influencers who've made a boodle of money podcasting and speaking and telling everybody all this bullshit. Everything is beautiful. We're all gonna be nice. We just need to love each other. And I will teach you how to love everybody for only $9.95. And a 2-week trip to my ashram. These are not good people, okay? These are virtue signalers. They want the world to see them as good, but they are actually hiding their sins. Pretending you have no ego is self-deception. Every soul has an ego, unless you've already been assimilated with a hive mind, in which case you're a lost soul already. Okay? And that's what they want you to do. That's what these hive minds want you to do. They are not loving kind, wonderful. They want to control you. And you can see that with what's going on right now with the woke cult. Okay, they're exploding because all their tribe is fighting amongst themselves, and suddenly they're not one anymore. You are one of us. No, I'm not. I don't think trans is good anymore. I only go for LGBTQ. Not Q. LGBT is okay, but not Q and not furries, and you know, there's all these little rifts showing up in their cult that they can't deal with, because their whole premise of existence is being eyes wide shut sheep who don't see the evil going on in their celebrity cult heroes. Okay, which again ties back to Chris Christopherson. Now, I personally don't think Chris was all that bad a character. I don't know what he did in his private life. I don't know how involved he was with the satanic after parties or that kind of stuff. I don't know if he was very politically active. Probably was. But it served a purpose. It moved the story along to where it had to be for this year. This is the apocalypse year. As I've been telling you, this 2025 is it. And you can see all around you that stuff is accelerating to make that happen. Okay? So what can you do? Well, it depends on what character you're playing, right? If you're away from the action and just, you know, you got a job, you got a family, you have obligations that you've gotten yourself into, just keep on playing that game unless you see something that really has to be done. Okay? If you've got children and you started grooming them into being gay or trans, you better stop that shit. You better sit down and have a good hard talk with the child and inform them that God really is a man. The Bible is mostly good advice. The 10 Commandments are real. And they will go to hell for engaging in Darwin Award-winning behavior. You are deliberately killing your DNA. You're never going to reproduce. Or if you do, you're going to be raising a child in a gender dysmorphic environment that says, oh, this is good, this is normal. No, it's not normal. It is deviant. Now, it's nobody's fault if you're deviant, but you need to be responsible for what you do with it. If you're gay, find somebody nice to do something with behind closed doors and practice safe sex. Okay? Anal sex is inherently very dirty. It is the most likely to transmit sexual diseases. In fact, AIDS was created specifically to target the gay and drug-using community, which pretty much is part of the same spaghetti ball that the music industry in Hollywood is. That's what people do in those elite circles. Normal sex isn't fun anymore. It's I'm bored with that. I want to do something different. And they've been having years and years of programming telling them that anal is really good. It really sucks. Oh man. At any rate, it's okay to have fantasies, but if you have to act out your fantasies, you've got a bad addiction. And you've got to work on that. If you don't, the addiction is going to get worse, and you will have, when you go to the afterlife, if you're LGBTQ blah 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 blue character, and that becomes part of your personality, you'll go to an afterlife for that kind of a character. And they will look at you and they will either keep sending you back as that kind of a character, probably in less friendly environments, to try to wean you of that if it's one of the better afterlives, if it's more of a heaven. If it's more of a hell, they might actually encourage you to keep building that darkness till it becomes an irreversible habit. And eventually these irreversible bad habits, you'll feel a conscience. You'll remember all the times that you groomed a small child. You drugged somebody to take advantage of them sexually, etc., etc. These are sins. Okay? Yeah, consenting adults is fine behind closed doors. Pride Month or Pride Week or Pride festivals out in public with kids around, it's a sin. And there's no getting around that. You are being irresponsible in the use of your sexuality. And the most important thing in being a good person is raising good kids. Because parenting is the key to godliness. That's why God is a father. He's a damn good parent. He's a tough parent. He doesn't put up with bullshit. He doesn't let his kids get away with whatever they want anymore. That's why we had to have this creation exercise happen. God didn't start out as a great parent. He was a creator. Sex didn't even exist. Evil didn't exist. God was a scientist who wanted to create things, and he made an engine for creation. That engine had components in it that did the work of testing, white box testing, knowing how the thing works, black box testing, not knowing how the thing works and trying to break it. Destructive testing, okay? White box testing, you try to make the product better. Black box testing, you're trying to see if you can break it. The scientists, AI scientists that God created in the beginning, before the beginning, and many, many, many versions ago of this simulation where we are both players and observers. Or sometimes there are observers outside watching the players, and the players don't know they're there. That's how you do social engineering, right? And I've been telling you about this. Okay? The destructive testers got to like their job too much, and they became so destructive that they basically got all the other kids, all the other old gods together and revolted against God. Said, we're not going to play this game anymore unless you give us more power. Okay, this is how cultural entropy happens. When you have, and this is basically like a supply chain breakdown. Okay, if God is not respected by the children, then the energy, the spiritual energy, doesn't flow. Okay, and it's like the whole system seizes up, which is exactly what's happening right now in humanity, right? Everything is seizing up. And although, you know, what Doge and Trump are doing is what America needs, it is basically a self-induced heart attack. It's going to have economic consequences. It's going to have geopolitical consequences. And it's going to increase the chance of an uncivil war breaking out between the anti-Trump and the pro-Trumpers, okay? He's like a Messiah character, right? But he's no Messiah, okay? He's not going to be the Prince of Peace or King of Kings. You don't do that by having half the world hate you. He is a Luciferian character. He's a tester. And I don't believe he is a destructive character. I think his opponents are the Lilithian Satanists. So you got basically what's going on in the country is two groups that hate each other. One of them is the destructive tester gods team, the woke cult, and the other is the constructive tester team, which pretty much describes Elon Musk. He's a great creator. He doesn't mind if he breaks some eggs along the way. So he doesn't mind taking advantage of people, abusing them, overworking them, treating them like shit if he doesn't respect them. Okay, this is characteristic of a Luciferian god. And that's what Elon will be when this simulation is over. His fixation on Mars is his saving grace. He doesn't want to be king of the world. He wants to be the king of Mars. Okay, maybe he is Mars, or was Mars. In fact, his name ties in with El Elyon, mentioned in the Bible as God the Most High. That wasn't really God the Most High. Most of the old gods were war gods first, right? Throwing the thunderbolts, fighting battles, okay? Those are war gods. Those are Martian gods. Mars is the god of war. The goddess of love, Venus, Aphrodite, that is the Lilithian team. That planet is the planet of Lilithian Satanism. They need to be isolated from the rest of the planets in this solar system. That's what Dyson spheres are for. We need to rebuild the prison that was holding all these Venusians in so they can't muck with us anymore. Actually, it's mostly built already. That's why there's only Venusian spirits mostly working on this planet. Or maybe some of the undead species that originated from Venus, who are still hiding amongst us, like vampires, werewolves, zombies. Okay, these kind of creatures live off life. They live off blood, flesh, and adrenochrome. They're not good guys. If you are conducting satanic rituals to get power, you're not a good guy. If you are grooming kids into sexual dysmorphia of either direction, okay? Celibacy is not godly. That's stupid. God said, be fruitful and multiply. Celibate priests are a problem waiting to happen because people have sexual desires. Okay? People need to satisfy those desires or the sexual pressure builds up. When you don't exercise it, you can build up spiritual power, and that was why they told priests you need to be celibate so you'll be more powerful. Well, this was a Lilithian lie. They were building up negative power through their not released sexual energy. It's not positive at all. There is positive power in relationships that are really loving, that are normal, that use sex responsibly. And this is why the generation I grew up in was pretty much the healthiest generation of America. We were more open about sexuality, but honest. We taught kids the dangers. We taught them that gay sex, anal sex, all these things were bad, until they started programming our kids with Masters and Johnson, telling them that, oh, this is all good. There was a deliberate psyop executed on America through Hollywood, which all led back to our enemies, our communist enemies in the USSR and China and their allies. This axis of evil has been assaulting us for a long time. And it included Nazi Germany, whose Ahnenerbe, the spiritual core of the Aryan cult, was very closely tied in with the Dalai Lama, who was groomed, tutored by Nazi SS agents during World War II. The Dalai Lama is not a good guy. He is a fake. He is a pedophile. He may be trans because, interestingly enough, he was born with a female name. Or maybe he's hermaphrodite, which means that he is a demon. Okay, you got to know about this stuff, folks, or you won't be able to make sense of your life. You're going to fall under the spell of somebody that's going to groom you. Now, sometimes maybe that's got to happen. Okay, if you're a character that the story depends on you being part of a cult, you're going to be part of that cult in the physical universe. But if you choose not to, you will get to live that part of your life, since that choice, in the heaven that saved you from that bad choice, or in your own heaven. Okay, this is how free will works. It's a plan, but you can make your own variations. You can fall into the variations of the gods and goddesses and collectives that you come under the influence of. The good gods and goddesses will influence you in a godly way. They will give you inspirations. They will give you just a fleeting vision of something. They will arrange for you to hear certain music or something that, wow, that's great. I want to go be a tuba player or whatever. These things, those things come from God. Okay? These channeling bullshit things that people are so proud of. Ooh, I'm channeling Metatron now. I'm channeling Nostradamus. This is the negative shit, okay? This is possession. You are letting that other entity control you. Now, maybe you're supposed to have that happen. And to some extent, that can be a good thing. If it weren't for Dolores Cannon, who is like the godmother of regression hypnotherapy, I would not have woken up to be able to tell you all this stuff. I did have a regression hypnotherapy session. I was very fortunate to go to this guy out in the middle of nowhere up in the Colorado mountains who was actually good at it. He didn't try to lead me to make up past lives or embellish past lives like some of these other practitioners are. The daughter of Dolores and a lot of the people who control that group now that trains regression therapists, they are a Lilithian cult. They are spreading this, we are all one nonsense. We are all God having a masturbation fantasy. And they're very heavily tied in with the woke cult, feminism and LGBTQ blah 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 blue. Okay? They're not good people. And they're gradually being called out for not being good people. A lot of them have been really popular with the Hollywood set, telling them what they want to hear. That is what a snake oil selling personal help trainer does. It's not what a godly shaman or guru or priest does. Okay, you don't lie to people to make them feel good. Little small lies, okay? White lies like telling kids there's Santa and giving them a present from Santa. It's not good, but it's not that horrible either. Okay? Pretty much, I didn't like to keep that secret from my kids. So, you know, I kind of let them know that, you know what, we're going to put the Santa gifts out now. And it's just fine by them. If they want to go sit on Santa's lap, I let them, but I watch the bastard real closely. Because the pedophile rate among Santas at the mall is pretty damn high. That's why they take that job. They get a thrill out of these kids sitting on their laps. And they have a network of people that they kind of get those jobs through. It's kind of a good old boys club for pedophiles. Not all of them, mind you. There are. Like I ran across this German guy that played Santa Claus at one of the malls in Jakarta. Not this last year, but the year before. He was a perfectly normal German guy who was just here, like me, retired and looking for extra work. Okay, he was no pedophile. I knew that. He was a great guy. So I'm not saying all Santas are bad. But you got to be careful. Oh, God. My screen timed out. Still going. Yeah, I think so. That was weird. At any rate, it is these ups and downs that are hard to deal with, but those are part of building a character. Okay, you're not going to get to heaven, you know, with them handing out tickets at the door. The only heavens that you get into free are the ones that are bad. They'll take anybody. Okay, a hive mind wants every soul it can grab because that gives more spiritual power to milk, to use to power its operation. In the board's case, that operation is useful because they use that energy to maintain the Akashic records, which is a database of characters, not only people, but things. Okay? Every cell type in your body has a representation. So when I need to go make a brain cell, I know how to index the brain cell pattern and map it with your individual DNA. Okay? It's like putting together a cake. There's part of your cell that is your DNA. There's other parts that are all the other stuff you need to bake that cake. This is how it works. It is not one thing. It is a composite of quantum consciousness, which goes from all the way to elementary particles, and even inside of elementary particles, quarks, to the biggest objects, okay? You're in kind of a middle soul vehicle playing a human character. It's actually a good thing to be in the middle because, as I told you, creation is about a middle, not a beginning, not an end. The Big Bang bullshit theory is completely false. Every single bit of nonsense that they've built around the Big Bang is complete bullshit. What is true is a lot of what they've done looking at star formation, star evolution. Those are based on rules that do apply. If that heavenly body is being run on autopilot, i.e. being run by a non-player character. Okay? Characters start the game at some end of the scale or other. Some characters start as an elementary particle. Some start as a galaxy or a planet or whatever. And because that was already there, or because there was a seed there. The seeds are these little red dots that appeared when the James Webb Space Telescope started delivering data. And the Big Bang Theory just went, okay, They're completely in a tizzy right now because their wonderful Big Bang is bullshit. And only a few brave scientists have been willing to step up and say, hey, it looks like maybe the universe is older than the Big Bang. And they've been shot at and laughed at and poo-pooed, and they're trying to make some silly theory that has stars and galaxies forming quicker in the early universe. It's complete nonsense, okay? They're not going to get anywhere with that bullshit because it's not true. But that's their choice. You know, they can choose. It's like, you know, I talk a lot about the flat earthers. That is their perspective, and maybe it will always be their perspective because their character was developed in a version of the simulation where that was true. Okay? There were many points in the many versions of the physical universe simulation where, yeah, we were stuck at this Big Bang limit. It wasn't about how big the universe was. It never got played to the end until recently when the new version started extending time, and there were battles over, my future versus the new future. This is what was going on until recently. Different futures battling to see, oh, can we kill the Messiah before he completely wakes up so we can keep running the old version. That's how this game works for the adversary. For God's team, you've got to wake up the Messiah and all the little m messiahs that are critical to solving the simulation. From the adversary side, you've got to stop either the big M Messiah or enough little m messiahs from waking up and doing what they were supposed to do to not have the simulation converge. Okay? Well, I can promise you we are in a convergent simulation. From every direction you look at, everybody has an idea that we are coming to a singularity. And it's coming faster and faster than anybody thought. Okay? This is a feature of what's going on. This is actually coded into the story of humanity because we planted Easter eggs in previous versions of space-time so you would find them just in time. Not too soon. If you find the Easter eggs too soon, then you find the Easter bunny and the bad bunnies can go kill them. Okay, it didn't happen till 2022. And there were so many signs, proofs that it was happening. People looking at what was going on in AI, people looking at what's going on with the UAP situation, people looking at what's going on politically, what's going on with the Epstein P. Diddy stuff. It's all coming together. And it involves you. You're part of it. A lot of Buddhists or these oneness cultists can think, well, I'm not involved in it, so I'm just going to watch. I'm going to sit back and watch and not look at all the evil going on around me. Well, that is a choice too. Not playing the game is a bad choice. If you see evil and you do nothing, you are getting some of the karma of that evil. And this ties back into, living a life like Chris Christopherson. Okay? You're going to see a lot of evil in the performing arts industry. You're going to see a lot of evil in politics. And you're going to be challenged. How much evil do I let go? When do I step in and take some action? There's not one right answer because you can't fight every battle. And there are many battles you cannot win. Okay, so you have to be judicious. Judicious means you have to think, you have to use your conscience. You need to decide, does this serve me? Would I be better off waiting and trying to serve in some other way? Okay? You don't have to fight every battle to go to heaven. You're going to have to walk away from some of them. You can't go through life with zero karma. It's impossible. Every time you breathe in, you're killing a whole bunch of bacteria and viruses. When your body digests stuff, it's killing other things. It's not like these stupid Eastern cult religions tell you. They did not understand the nature of reality, the nature of quantum consciousness. They thought that, oh, well, consciousness is something only humans have. Or, well, humans and animals. Or maybe humans, animals, and plants. And then, you've got these idiots who will only eat fruit because it can grow back every year or something like that. These people are stupid. They do not understand reality. They are delusional. Now that's their choice. And some people will always be delusional because that is the universe that they experience in their incarnation. There are characters running around the earth right now that were invented when the earth was flat. That's where the flat earthers come from. There are characters running around when we didn't have any structure smaller than our body. It was all just simulated. There was nobody had ever done any surgery yet, so there was no need to invent all the properties of cells. There was no need to invent all the properties of stars, galaxies. They were just that era's little red dots, or whatever color they were, whatever they looked like. Okay? Nothing gets manifested until you observe it at a closer and closer level of detail. A lot of the stuff we see in the skies hasn't been created yet. It's just like a placeholder. Okay? This is the way your life is if you're a non-player character. There's a lot of placeholders around you that are just other non-player characters figuring out what to do. And you have to kind of bump around with them, kind of like if you've ever studied thermodynamics, this is like molecules in a gas. They work under the laws of thermodynamics. They bounce around and they will gradually mix and increase entropy. But that's not the way everything works, because you can decrease entropy too. You can create order. Scientists do it all the time. That's the way God did it. He didn't use some special magic wand that only he had. That's nonsense. God is a spiritual scientist. A really advanced one, but started out basically at the same place as all of you. Somewhere, somewhen, millions and millions and millions of simulations ago. Okay? So, you gotta be a little bit humble to be a creator, because you're going to make mistakes. God made tons of mistakes. That's why we're playing this game now, to fix the mistake of letting evil into heaven. Okay? We don't need destructive testers anymore in the highest heaven. It was perfect, except that we had a bunch of sneaky turncoats waiting till God's back was turned to stab him in the back. This is the fallen angel story. Although the funny thing is that it was actually not fallen angels that were the bad guys. It's the ones that went out to space. Okay, when we were doing the first versions that included panspermia, when we started sending things out to space, it was very much like this time right now. And if you talk to scientists about how they would do that, not knowing anything about spiritual technology, about how to make wormholes, how to make warp drives, all of these technologies that we're struggling with, that we've seen UFOs using, okay, you've got to do it the hard way. That's the way it started. You think, well, what would be the easiest way to explore the cosmos? Well, we could send expeditions, but it would take multiple generations. And then by the time they got there and got back, everybody would be dead. Where's the fun in that? So then you think, well, we could send out nanobots to explore and have some sort of transmission mechanism so that they can tell us where we should send more sophisticated nanobots. And maybe technology develops to the point where, oh, we can make a Dyson sphere and generate a lot of energy from heavenly bodies. That gives us the technology to, and if we understand where gravity really comes from, doesn't work like they say in the textbooks. It comes from having a core at the center of a heavenly body. That core is basically a very fundamental Dyson sphere. It contains negative energy and matter. That negative energy and matter can be used to attract positive energy and matter, to condense gas clouds into planets, or stars, or galaxies, or whole universes working on those principles. The same laws apply at every level, but they can be broken if you have the spiritual power, because consciousness is spirituality. Identical. Psionic power is consciousness power, is quantum consciousness applied. That's all that's going on. And I don't know how much more of the bullshit I can listen to from these materialist scientists and even these stupid cosmic oneness scientists. Oh, consciousness is quantum, but it's collective. We're all one. This is nonsense. These people are crazy. They're possessed. I'm really, really, really saddened and disheartened and disappointed that people that I once admired, like Nassim Haramein, are stupid as fuck. They got pulled into the hive mind and they're posting complete nonsense bullshit about 0-point energy. You don't get energy for free, Nassim. The conservation of energy and matter applies everywhere. If you don't see where the energy came from, it's because it came from another universe, you stupid fuck. Sorry. Sometimes I have to use a little French when I get excited. It bothers me to see people eyes wide shut. And there are ways to be eyes wide shut that are absolutely critical to your passion. If you're a scientist that's augured in on materialism, I promise you, you are not going to get to stay on this planet after the end of this year. Guaranteed 100%. We don't need you. You're going to be in your other version of space-time, living out that version, which doesn't have a happy ending. Okay? The other versions of this time, most of them ended in non-convergence. What happens when you have a non-convergence of a singularity? It blows up. Okay? All of the doomsaying prophecy was basically based on remote viewing other versions of space-time, past versions that the remote viewer happens to be connected to, because that version was where their character originated. You get how this stuff works? You're not necessarily seeing the future here, you're seeing a future. Remote viewing only works to the extent that you actually see the future that most of us are going to see. And most of us are going to see the Star Trek future. Okay? The ones born in this generation that got some non-player character role out in the middle of bumfuck Egypt, you know, out on some island in the Pacific, and wondering, you know, why am I here? What am I doing? Why me, God? You're the lucky ones. You get to the next version without really being tested too hard. And as a reward for being part of this process, you automatically get one level up in spirituality. From now on out, every human that's born in this space-time is going to normally advance to 5th level consciousness, which is the first level of spiritual awareness. There will be no more humans growing up in this universe that have not had some spiritual awareness awakening. Okay? This, you'd already see it. There's so many kids that have spiritual experiences until they get to be a certain age, and the indoctrination they get kind of changes their religion to atheism or agnosticism, and they stop advancing spiritually. That's how it works. We're not going to be doing that anymore. We're not going to be telling kids there is no God, because there is a God. We're not going to be telling them there's only one God, because that's not true. There are many gods, but there is only one God, the Most High, which is not the God of the physical universe. It is the God of the whole multiverse, the architect, okay, the designer of this system, who plays the game too, who's played the game so well that he finally woke up in the most difficult character type of all. Humanity is not an easy kind of character to play. You got a lot of temptations, a lot of challenges, so many addictions you could fall into. And in the last 20, 30 years, the number of bad addictions you could fall into has gone like this, with anti-social media and streaming, you know, Netflix and Amazon Prime and all that shit, making trash to poison kids' mind. You've got the woke cults taking over academia, and you know, is teaching your kids all kinds of shit that they don't want you to know about. So, you know, they don't invite you to the PTA anymore, and they won't let you ask any questions. This is really evil shit. We're not going to tolerate that. Okay? On God's planet, there will still be stuff going on in other versions of the Earth, but the new Earth not going to have all that shit. If you want to play that game, what's going to happen is you're going to get taken by one of the orbs to another planet somewhere out there. And where you go is going to be based on how far you have strayed from God in your character choices. Not necessarily because you played an evil character, unless you were actually enjoying playing that evil character. Okay? If you were making that part of your personality, instead of every turn of the way saying, oh, God, I know this is the wrong thing to do, I'm not going to do it. Okay? Even if you end up doing it, that thinking, that access of your conscience, your karma, shows that you were trying to be a better person. Exactly the opposite of what all these idiot gurus and stuff are telling you. Oh, you gotta be in the moment. Live for now. That's fucking nonsense. It may make sense if you're a soldier or if you're an actor up on stage. It makes absolutely no sense if you're anybody else that has time to think, is this a good idea? Okay? These people telling you that nonsense are not spiritual gurus. They're snake oil salesmen. They may be doing it naively. They don't know any better, or their character has to do that. Okay, I understand that. But if you're listening to me and you're of that stripe, and you haven't been thinking, gee, I shouldn't be so much in the moment. I should think more about what I'm doing. I should think more about the choices I've made. I should have thought more before I said hallelujah to all this woke cult bullshit that's overtaken us. I should have thought more before I became a communist. I should have thought more before I started supporting terrorist organizations like Antifa, BLM, the pro-Palestinian morons. These are terrorist groups. They are designed by our enemies to help weaken us and destroy us. That's not good, folks. That's not good. If you're an American pro-Palestinian keffiyeh-wearing moron, flag burner or whatever, you're evil. You're playing an evil character. If you're enjoying it and you get to survive to play another game, which you may not, you may just go to the beast abyss, be wiped, and then fall into some other role somewhere, somewhere. Maybe as a Star Trek red shirt that's going to get killed on every mission. That's an NPC type character. Optional. It's like scenery. Anybody could have played that red shirt, gone to that planet, and accidentally got killed by the monster. Okay? It's not such a special thing. It never was such a special thing. In fact, it was kind of bad because if you got cast as one of the landing crew and you had any kind of a memorable look, you never got cast again. That's the curse of Hollywood. If you're not very successful, you end up playing stunt doubles and extras and crowd scenes. If you are successful, you get typecast. There's so many really good actors who only got to do good acting on the stage because the moment they auditioned for a role after they became famous, you know, for well, I mean, there are a few exceptions. Buddy Ebsen, for one, didn't get typecast, although most of the rest of the cast of Beverly Hillbillies did. So, you know, it's the characters you play and the choices you make. Buddy Ebsen is an interesting character. One of the roles that he dropped out of was he was supposed to play the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz, and he didn't like all the silver paint they putting on him. He thought it was toxic. He said, "I'm not playing this role. Go away." He gave that one up. And that's what allowed him to be free to play Jed Clampett on the Beverly Hillbillies. And other roles that he got that, you know, if he'd been the Tin Man and he was recognizable in that role, may never have got another role. Look at the other actors that were playing the characters in The Wizard of Oz. The only one that I can think of that got regular castings was Dorothy, because she was a big star and a singer and a very corrupt and not very good person. Again, ties into this whole theme of the path that we take. Okay, it's supposed to be difficult. If you're not given all the opportunities that you envy in others, don't play it like a jerk. Spend your life whining about, why me, Lord? Why couldn't I be Taylor Swift? I can dance as good as she does. I can sing as good as she does. I got big boobs, or I could if I went to the plastic surgeon. This kind of a mindset is childish. It is immature. It is narcissistic. And believe me, narcissists don't go to heaven. Okay? They end up, if they get encouraged in their narcissism enough, they turn into evil characters. Okay? So to that extent, you know, wanting to not have an ego is kind of a good thing, but pretending you have no ego is really bad, because you do have an ego. You do feel envy, jealousy, depression, all of these negative emotions. You can't just pretend they don't exist You can't just drug yourself out of them, okay? All that is going to do is multiply the stresses on your soul. You can't avoid karma. Anything you apply on a wound is not necessarily going to heal it. It might make it less painful. It might make it heal up faster. But that wound, that experience, is not going to go away. And in many cases, it's more healthy to experience the disease than to try to cure it. That's why most people who know much about health they try not to take like flu and cold medicine when they have a flu or a cold. They let their fever go up because that is a natural part of having that disease. It actually goes away quicker and your body generates antibodies quicker. Okay? By masking the symptoms, by taking medicine, same thing goes for mental hospitals and stuff. Okay? If you take psychotic drugs to deal with your mental problem, it's not dealing with the problem, it's masking it. And you've got so many people on mind-altering drugs that are dependent on those drugs day to day. You know, half the people in Hollywood have like 5 prescriptions they have to take every day. And maybe 2 other things that they take that aren't legal. That's the truth, and it is evil. These substances that are supposed to be cures are actually can be very negative things. And in fact, the reason disease exists is because they were created. Remember I was talking about how in the panspermia age we send out nanobots to go explore and later terraform planets and so this is how we got to Andromeda. Okay? In the version of the simulation where Andromeda was colonized, it was colonized by nanobots. Self-evolving nanobots, organic nanobots. Those self-evolving nanobots were very far from the Earth, which is the center of God's spiritual energy. Very far out. Guess what they were going to do? They were going to become evil. The Andromedans are evil. They're not our best buddies who want to help us. They created every goddamn disease that has afflicted humanity. They are the ones that enslaved proto-humans and upgraded their DNA to make them into a slave race. That's how evil the Andromedans are. And if we want to eradicate disease, if we want to live as long as people used to, 3,000 or 4,000 years, if you didn't run into a buzzsaw or something, we got to kick those motherfuckers out of here. All of their nanobots and stuff. And in fact, the process is already partly done. Because the big event of 2022 that happened, that made all this stuff happen, was the Messiah waking up and doing spiritual battle with the hive mind queen of Andromeda. Andromeda's a girl's name, right? Oh, you make out, oh, she was the princess that Perseus had to go save and had to kill the Medusa. Well, that story is one of many that got corrupted from its original mythology. Okay? The Medusa was the Andromeda. The princess being saved was another race called the Pleiadians. They are in our galaxy. They have been enslaved for most of their history by the Pleiadians, the same way that we got enslaved. But they are now part of the resistance. They have been freed because the portal between this galaxy and Andromeda have been closed. No more wormholes. You can't go back to Andromeda. You're stuck here. That is the power of a Messiah. Okay? During the awakening, I fought a lot of demons and beat them every single time. And yes, they are kind of like tricksters. And yes, they may seem like they have a male nature to them. But let me tell you, they are shapeshifters. They will manifest the way that they think they can work on you the most. And those demons worked on me before I even started my spiritual awakening through female manifestations, temptations of the flesh. And I'll admit, I have sinned. I've done a lot of things I'm not too proud of. They were demon-induced. That doesn't forgive me for going along with their programming. I feel kind of stupid for not seeing through all the times I was taken advantage of by demons. Sometimes I've actually lately been letting demons take advantage of me as a ploy, as like a cheese being put out. Kind of like the real story of Andromeda. The Medusa was waiting. Oh. Okay. My screensaver went on again. Was waiting to ambush Perseus, rescuing the Pleiadian woman from hive mind controlled by the Medusa. That's the truth of that story. And if you look at any of these stories, they're twisted around. These Trinity stories especially are twisted around. You'll see a lot of stories in mythology that are like 2 women and 1 man, 2 men, 1 woman, man, woman, child. Okay? These Trinity stories are spiritual stories. And all of these combinations have characters that are adversarial, except the Holy Family stories. The Holy Family stories, the principal characters are God, Karma, and Lucifer. Lucifer's kind of the bad guy, but he wants really to impress God because he's his father, right? You want to be better than Dad. That's the way to show that you're grateful to your dad. I remember that when I was a kid. I always wanted to do something to make my dad proud. He was a nuclear chemist. So I studied physics even though I was more interested in music and history and art. That's the kind of things we will do for love of a parent. It's important that I did that. Those decisions were absolutely critical to knowing everything I needed to know to get where I am today. If I had focused on my passions at the time, well, I was playing the violin. I never got really good at the violin. I don't have the manual dexterity. Would I have been good as an archaeologist? I don't think so, because most archaeologists are raised in a system that is very woke, cult, dogmatic. This is the story of humanity, and anything that doesn't fit in it is heresy. It's turned into a religion. That's why they've been persecuting people like Graham Hancock and Danny Hillman, who's actually pretty close to me. I'm only about 100 kilometers from Gunung Padang. Haven't been there yet, but I plan to go sometime. It's an interesting place historically. Yeah, other things. I'll give you a little hint, a little idea of some of the handicaps I've had to deal with, and maybe you'll see a pattern. I was born lame. I was completely bow-legged. My legs were turned in like this, and the doctors wanted to break my legs and set them straight. My mom wouldn't let them do that. So I wore crutches. I rode braces for a long time. Those metal braces like Forrest Gump, and little insert braces that fit in my shoes until I was about 6 or 7 years old. Okay, so I've lived the Forrest Gump life. I grew up in a podunk town in Idaho Falls, which used to be called Eagle Rock. I was born in the Sacred Heart Hospital in the heart of Mormon country. A non-Mormon kid who never felt really like part of the in crowd. In fact, let's see. What other stories do I want to give you this time that Gordon gave you? Well, I had my first near-death experience when I was 2 years old. Yeah, I fell in the Snake River while we were out camping. And I nearly drowned. My oldest brother saved me. Peter, thank you. That was probably the high moment of my poor brother's life because he's had a lot of trouble since then. When I was, my first day of school, I'll tell you about that one. I went to school my first day, and my mother, she was kind of strange. She, for some reason, would only dress me in blue. That's all I had is blue clothes. And I went to school the first day, and get out to recess, and I started, I ran out to the swings. I like to swing, and some kid threw me off the swing and beat the crap out of me. And then later on that day, I got in class, and this girl saw that, or actually it was later that year, this girl in the class noticed I wore blue every day and started calling me Little Boy Blue and teasing me. I didn't mind. It was all in good fun. I just laughed it off, and it didn't tarnish me. I could have very easily, fought back with this big kid and made it a big deal that I dwelt on for the rest of my life. I chose to just, this is not a battle I want to fight. It's not a thing I want to make a big deal of. I didn't go tell my parents and have them go tell the school and punish the kid and get him, all the stuff that parents often do these days. I dealt with my own problems. And I think that's part of how I managed to be the character you're seeing in front of you today. My first romantic experience, I think I'll finish up with that one. We're running on about an hour and a half now. I was a brainiac. I was very shy, bookish, intellectual kid. I read, by the time I was 3 years old, I was already reading self-taught books. Like, I think at 4, I was reading books that were this thick. My favorite book of that era was one called The Story of Mankind. That's how I got my interest in history, by Hendrik Willem van Leeuwen. A great book for your children that has wonderful illustrations. And I think the most interesting thing about it is how many revisions it has had even after his death. And some of those revisions were woke cultural Marxism. They were inserting propaganda. And this is what's particularly disturbing about what's happened in an accelerated way since Amazon, because libraries are not buying books anymore. They're buying digital editions, which can be changed, which can be altered, which can be corrupted. And this all ties into the cancel culture stuff. My first experience, romantic experience, I had a lot of crushes on a lot of girls. But kind of never managed to hook up with one. I was a popular kid. I was the brainy kid that would let people copy off my papers. I didn't care. I knew I was going to get the best grades anyway, and it was like I knew that grade school was kind of a purgatory for me. I was already at a 6th grade level of education in most dimensions in 1st grade. My parents, oddly, didn't accelerate me like so many parents will pull you and put you ahead grades. Didn't happen to me. So what I did is I was lucky enough to have good teachers who sort of saw that I was kind of a more interesting pupil to teach. My first grade teacher, Joe Snell, big battle axe of a woman, scared the hell out of the kids, but I was her favorite student because I got all her jokes. She had an incredible sense of humor that went right over most of the class, but I was just laughing my head off, and it made her so happy to have this one student in her class that actually made it worth teaching after you've been teaching for 40 years, right? She would leave me in charge of the class and let me teach the class once in a while. And oddly enough, they didn't act up or cut up or do anything. You know, they just sort of gravitated to my leadership. It's quiet leadership. I never thought of myself as a leader until, oh gosh, I don't think I ever thought of myself as a leader until, you know, like my second or third job out of college. And then it was because I was forced into it. I was doing wireline logging for Schlumberger out in the oil patch. And they have a standard promotion program where after 3.5 years or so, you need to get your general field engineer. They had like rankings, and then after that, you got your promotion out of the field. And they stuck me in sales. It's like, what am I going to do in sales? I never sold anything in my life. Best thing that ever happened to me. But backing up, my first romantic experience. This was kind of a downer, and a story I haven't told. I only told my son last week, so you're getting it almost as fresh as anybody. There was this one girl that I always hung out with the cool kids in high school because they liked being nice to me. I was easy to get along with, and I was always willing to help people with their papers and stuff like that. Let them copy a little bit off my test. I didn't really have a problem with that. I was friends even with the stoners. Any rate, I was out with some friends, hanging out, and this girl took an interest in me. I don't even remember her name, but I do remember that she was kind of chunky, not unattractive, but you know, not my idea of an attractive girl at that age. I've always liked slim, petite women. Go figure. Any rate, she took a fancy to me and kind of came on to me, and it's like I'd never had a relationship before, and here's somebody coming on to me, and it's like, okay, well maybe this is what I need to settle for, because I don't think I'm ever going to be able to have a girlfriend because I'm so shy and such a nerdy guy. So we hung out that one night. By the end of the night, we were making out, and it was like, okay, this is like getting kind of serious here. And I had one of what were many of these something's not right here moments, which that is how you sense your conscious, your karma. You're going in a direction that's not right for you. I had this feeling that night that this is not right. Now, part of it was because the girl was Mormon, and I'd seen many of my friends get involved with Mormon girls and convert to their religion and get very involved in their activities, and that wasn't what I wanted. I didn't even like going to the Presbyterian church my parents went to. I was actually more attracted to Catholicism, that my mom had come from France in the war and was still basically a Catholic at heart. And I loved the tradition of classical music that was largely built upon Catholicism. Even though I was not religious, I loved sacred music. Go figure. At any rate, I had this I can't do this moment, and the next day, I thought I've got to nip this in the bud. So the next day, I didn't talk to the girl. She came up to me, and I just like totally ignored her, dumped her like a hot potato, and I kind of felt like a heel for it. But part of me thought, this is the only way to do it. You can kill with kindness. If you string along somebody that you know you're never going to marry, is only somebody you might date to get sex, this is a sinful thing. Most people would say, oh, you should be nice to her. Oh, you were such a horrible person. And a lot of people thought that. And that was the only girlfriend I had in high school. One night stand. College wasn't much better. But that's a story for another podcast. Anyway, there are a lot of ways to play your role, and you have to play it consciously. You don't always get all the choices you would like to have. You can dream, you can fantasize, and those fantasies will help form your character. If you act out the fantasies, they can form bad habits. If you have dark sexual fantasies, which many people do, most people do, in fact, in the last decades, you can hardly avoid it. Everybody's exposed to porn from a very young age. Okay? Many people cannot resist it. That doesn't mean you should eliminate all porn. Okay? Many people can resist it. I can resist it. It's actually a good outlet when you are in a relationship that you're not getting your sexual needs met, as long as you don't turn fantasy into reality. Okay, so have your fantasies, but know they are fantasies. The big problem with the woke cult is kids have been encouraged to act out their fantasies. Oh, well, when I was young, I always wanted to be a furry little creature. Okay, I'll be a furry little creature. And they'll start doing cosplay, being furry creatures, and before you know it, they think they're fucking furry creatures. That is dark. That is sinful. You're acting out the fantasy, making your fantasy reality your reality. That is character forming, but it's forming a dark character. It's forming a character that is going to be ostracized from our species. That's what the mark of the beast is. It's not necessarily a bad thing, because many humans can't handle being human. That's okay. Admit it. But don't punish everybody for what you don't like in your life, because that's just going to make it worse. Indulge in your furry fantasy by going to cosplay, by playing furry fantasy games, whatever. Just don't expect people to call you by your furry pronouns. Okay, that is abusive. Forcing other people to accept your reality when it's not their reality, that's a sin. Okay? Getting all upset because somebody used the N-word. That's nonsense. People make mistakes all the time. In fact, you cannot do good stand-up comedy without using bad words and insults. Makes good comedy. Go look at any of the classic comedians of human history, and they all use that as part of their bag of tricks. There's nothing wrong with it. We should be able to laugh at ourselves. We should be able to criticize ourselves. Say, hey, what am I doing here? Am I really doing what's good for me? Instead, we've got this culture that criticizes everybody else but us. I'm perfect. Everybody else is warped. That's not healthy. Not at all healthy. It's not good. You are not being a good parent by telling your kid they are perfect. They can do no harm. Now, this progressive parenting nonsense is nonsense. You are raising narcissistic, spoiled brats by following the standard progressive parenting nonsense bullshit. Okay? And that's been going on for a long time. We got to stop that. Okay? It's not going to be tolerated in the future on God's planet. If you're that kind of person, that's your religion, You think that's more important than God the Most High? You put that icon, celebrity icon image above God, you're breaking a commandment. Okay? That's what the commandments are for. The commandments are not monotheistic. They actually acknowledge that there are many gods, and you can worship false gods. It's right there in the Bible. There's nothing in the Bible until Christianity came along and Rabbinic Judaism, which was not the original Judaism. I'm sorry. It's bullshit that was added when these demons started selling monotheism instead of healthy polytheism. Healthy polytheism is, yes, there are many gods, but there is one God, the Most High. It's right there in the Old Testament, El Elyon. The perfect time was when God, the Most High, allocated the earth to the different versions, I think say 70 or 80 sons of God. Okay, that was the power distribution in that version of space-time. And that version was one before the demons reinvaded this planet. Okay, we've been playing this game a long time. Great Reset, Apocalypse, expansion spiritually, new species go out and establish empires. It's like the lungs of creation. Okay? Those lungs have to keep working. We're always going to have this spiritual battle going on, but we put the lungs further and further away from God's favorites. Once we start isolating evil. That's what this step is all about. We are going to banish evil from God's planet. And then from the other planets in this solar system. Planets in other solar systems till we take the whole galaxy back. That is God's chosen galaxy. Other gods have their own galaxies, their own planets, their own stars. You go worship them, just don't do it around here, okay? That's how it works. We don't kill evil, we banish it. That's what Exodus is all about. Leaving a place that you've been banished from. The Exodus of the Bible was actually being banished from Egypt. Or kicked out of Egypt, because what happened was, I'll tell you this story real quick. I've told it before, but just so some of you new folks will kind of get where I'm coming from. The real Moses was the son of Amenhotep III, who was also the father of Akhenaten, who was originally named Amenhotep IV. Okay. Tutmosis, who would have been the fifth, was the heir, was the oldest son, who should have been Pharaoh. His half-brother, whose mother was one of these Lilithian aliens, these cone heads that we see a lot throughout the, different places on the planet. These were not a good species. The cone heads were a hive mind psionic species that have been among us for a long time, till they get banished from the earth by a Messiah. Tutmosis was an incarnation of God, had a very tough life, lost his inheritance, was banished with his followers to the hinterland of the Egyptian world then, which was the outskirts of Canaan, where mostly just wild shepherd tribes lived. He and his followers gathered together and taught the old religion, which is what he had been inspired with. The old religion of Egypt was the religion not of Isis, Osiris, and Horus, not worshiping the Pharaoh as Akhenaten, not monotheist at all. It was the polytheistic Christianity of Ptah, which is the first Peter. Ptah. That's the rock upon which Christianity was built on. Way back, as far back as the Egyptian civilization goes. The symbol of Ptah was the Tauro, the Ankh. Okay? That is a form of cross that signifies the importance of Taurus, the celestial bull, because the best Messiah species have always been Taurids, descended from bull ancestors, bull hybrids. Bulls are a flocking species that have a lot of power. Their leaders are very strong. They exert strong control over the herd, and they protect them from adversaries. That's why the buffalo survived so long in the Old West. Okay? The Brahma bull comes from India. That is where Brahma came from. Abraham was in exile, had an exodus from the Indus Valley civilization in India when his civilization was invaded by demons. That's where the Asuras came from. That's where Kali and Shiva, the destroyer gods, came from. They're not good guys. Okay? They are evil. Destroyer gods and goddesses are evil. If you need to destroy to build back better, you're not a good creator, okay? Good creators build on what they have. They repurpose what's already there. They reuse components. Okay, that's efficient. So Ptah was the rock upon which Christianity was built. There was no St. Peter. Didn't exist. Totally fictional character. Very likely, Jesus was a fictional character. Jesus was made up of a bunch of people that got the Messiah vision during that time. And they picked up little pieces of it here, pieces of it there. Paul probably got the best of it because his letters, his writings, the versions of the gospel that were kept and not thrown out in the Nicene Council were largely a victory for the Pauline faction. Paul was an agent of the Flavian dynasty. They were selling a Roman Christianity. And that's why you had Josephus be suddenly going from being the rebel in Judea to being the personal scribe and part of the family of the emperor. That's not a coincidence. That's not a miracle. It was all planned out ahead. There are three versions of Christianity, three sources. One is the source of the Hasmonean Messiah, the Jewish Messiah, that kept getting disappointed because the Hasmonean dynasty never actually got to rule Israel for more than a few years before their first priest king, Simon Thassi, was assassinated in 135 BC. Same 135 BC that Assyrian Magus, worshiper of the dark goddess, a cult whose priests castrated themselves to show how devoted they were to their goddess. This is the sex and death cult here. They sent an agent to Sicily to raise a slave revolt. He was a magician. He was raising people from the dead, doing all sorts of magic tricks, curing the blind, using dark magic. Raised up the first slave revolt, which the Romans, reacting to, was kind of the first step of the downfall of the Roman Republic. And these slave Dionysian worshippers were the first Christians in Rome. They were doing sacrifices in the catacombs. They were killing the pets and the children and even some of their masters. It was a slave cult of hatred. It was only later when the Vespasian line, that family that had ties to the Hellenistic area, had ties to the Jewish elite in Alexandria, they cooked up a plan to rejuvenate the old Christianity of Egypt as the new Serapis cult. And that's when 250 years before Christ, you see the Cairo on coins of Ptolemy III. The same Cairo that Constantine saw 500 years later. It's not a crucifixion cross. Crucifixion was a punishment devised to try to make sure undead stayed dead. They had problems with undead then too. Crucifixion was kind of their era's version of driving a stake through their heart. Okay? The Shroud of Turin is the shroud of a vampire. That's how screwed up Christianity has gotten, with all the corruption that has been done by these various people who want to turn it into a religion of power. Burning heretics is not a good thing. Okay, it's okay to have a war against sinners. It's not okay to have a war against somebody that has a different idea of who God is and who the lower gods are, the demigods. You can have a different pantheon as long as you're not sacrificing children, as long as you're not grooming kids into satanic cults of sex and death magic. Okay? Yet you've got all these cults still existing within all of the Abrahamic religions, and even more so in Hinduism and Buddhism. You gotta stop that shit. You can't worship evil gods, or you will be sent away. You will go on an exodus. And this is the big one coming up now. You won't just be going from Egypt to Gaza, or Jerusalem, or wherever they went on their first trip with Moses. You will be going very, very far, at least as far as another planet in this system, maybe as far as one of these new red dot placeholders that doesn't have a Genesis story yet. And how is that going to get established? The first character that becomes a Messiah there establishes their space-time, their little local version of it, fleshes out that part of the story. That's how the simulation multiverse keeps adding content, because it's about raising souls in an environment that lets them train themselves to be any kind of character they want. It all serves in the end. The evil galaxies and universes and planets generate energy that is used for the good ones. Okay? That's why we have matrix universes, matrix worlds. They're not God's worlds, they're God's adversaries, which he isolates so that all this, the energy milking that's done by a matrix, can be converted into positive energy, or can be sealed up within the core of new planets that will form. Okay? You need negative energy, negative matter to make planets, to make stars, to make galaxies. It's how physics and chemistry works in reality. And it's how it works on this planet. As I've told you, the core of this planet is not solid iron. That is an illusion. The core of this planet is a Dyson sphere, the most perfect one ever designed. The kind that will survive complete destruction of the rest of the planet. That's how God fooled the adversary for 4.5 billion years. That's how long it took for the adversary to forget how to play the game. Because if you know anything about social engineering, you know that if the players in a social engineering experiment or the experimenters know too much, they can affect the results. That's why you do double or triple blind experiments when you're doing social engineering kind of things, where you may have a different experience based on your thinking. Okay? Another proof that thought is fundamental to everything else. Okay? It's not matter and energy that are most fundamental. I'm sorry, materialist scientists, you are dead flocking wrong, and I can prove it. You can prove it to yourself if you just open your mind a little bit and stop being such numby-gumby atheists. Any rate, I wanted to wrap up. Hope you enjoyed this. Like, share, subscribe. Till next time, this is Rob Trump with the Honest Hour saying, happy karma.